especially as women, we often become the martyr. It's like if I divvy up the task list, then I can't walk around and say, oh, I'm doing so much. And we don't even realize that we actually get self-worth. We get a positive feedback from that. Is that true? So you have to really, like, if you're going to divvy it up, you're going to have to also make sure that now you let go of the story that you're telling yourself about how you're the only one working.
Yep. And that it is actually true. And it wouldn't seem on the surface, right? It doesn't consciously make sense to be like, I don't want to be a martyr. What are you even talking about, right? Like people, we don't want to cop to that because it's ego dystonic, right? It's not aligned with the way that we want to see ourselves. And you don't think that all of the mothers and grandmothers that we know who are like full blown martyrs, who full on say, after everything I've done for you, and I'm the only one who does anything, when they were 25 or 30, you don't think that they were like, I can't wait to grow old and become a martyr. Like, of course not. Right?
They don't say that? You don't think
No.
they said that?
That wasn't a goal for anyone.
Yeah.
But here's the thing. If there's no intervention, if you don't create better internal boundaries, because that's what we're talking about, boundaries with ourselves, our internal boundaries, how well we emotionally self-regulate, how well we follow through for ourselves on the things that we say we're going to do for ourselves, whether that's working out, whether that's working less, whether that's divvying up the emotional labor and all the, the hidden things that are happening in the home. If we don't do them, that is having a disordered boundary with yourself, because consciously, when you really think about it, there's a part of you that knows that's the healthy thing to do. But the less healthy part is like, but then I have to give up my martyr status. And nobody's going to admit that consciously because we don't want to. But there is a little bit of an attachment, as you said.
Yeah. And then how do we, it's interesting because with boundaries, I have been given a lot of opportunities recently to set some boundaries with my loved ones. And every time I go, like, I'll give you an example. I've got, for whatever reason over the holidays, a bunch of people that want to stay, family, friends want to stay in my house. And I've got a book launch. My book launches on December 27th. So you know what that's, and people listening to this, it'll be after the launch. But all these people, it's almost like I told myself, okay, you're going to just take care of yourself and do what you need to do to launch this book into the world. So that's going to mean saying no and setting boundaries with people. And man, I feel like every situation is emerging to set boundaries. And so it's almost like the minute you make that declaration, you get the opportunity. And then the people around me, they're not enjoying the boundaries I'm setting.
You know what is so great though, Mindy? It's like they don't have to.
Right.
Here's the thing. And we don't do it. We're not doing it. Boundaries are not things that we set to punish others. They're not levers of control. They're actually our own. The way that I describe boundaries, how I write about it in Boundary Boss, is that I want you to think about your boundaries as your own personal rules of engagement. It allows other people to know what's okay with you and what's not okay with you. So your boundaries are comprised of your preferences, your desires, your limits, and your deal breakers, like your non-negotiables. So it's not enough to just know them. You also must have the capability of communicating them clearly, concisely, transparently when you so choose. And I think that is the part that screws a lot of people up, is they may know it, but they don't have the words. They don't know how to just say no, as you're saying. Yeah. That's probably the biggest question that I get from people online. Like, why is it so hard for me to say no?
Yeah. Why is it?
You're like, perfect time to answer that question.
Yeah, answer that. That's like the $1 million question for sure.
Well, let's think about what I write about is we each have a downloaded boundary blueprint, which is this paradigm in our unconscious mind that's comprised of our lived experiences, the home we grew up in, country, culture, your lineup in the family system, your role in the family system. All those things come together, make up what we think it means to be a good person, to be a good, if you're raised as a woman, to be a good woman, to be a good partner, to be a good mother, to be a good friend. So there's all of these things influencing us in this unconscious way. So it's important that we bring this unconscious information up into the main part of the house, as I call it, your conscious mind, so that we can choose. like, oh, my mother or my maternal impactor, because it could have been a foster mom or an auntie or whoever raised you, was a people pleaser. Then I learned that pleasing others was a way of being nice, is a way of being kind, right? So we start to understand like, oh, I relate to boundaries this way for a whole bunch of really good reasons. And now I get a choice to decide how I want to relate to boundaries. Because if you look at the end of the story, with a lot of our maternal impactors, they do end up as martyrs, as guilt machines, as people who are like, any means to sort of get what they want to a degree. Like, there's emotional blackmail going on. There's all of these things because being direct and telling the truth was considered, at least the way that I was raised, was considered kind of gauche, right? Like,
right.
It's like rude to be direct, which is so ridiculous because
Right.
of course it's not. And actually having healthy boundaries and sharing them, your preferences, your limits, your deal breakers with the people that you love is actually the most intimacy building thing that you can do. It's the kindest thing that you can do. It's the most loving thing that you can do, because when you think about it, saying yes when you really want to say no, under the umbrella of like being nice, like think about it. Is that really nice?
Right.
It's not.
No, we have a statement that we've been saying in my friend group about to be clear is to be kind. Yeah. And I really, when I get up against a wall of like how I'm going to have to let somebody down by setting a boundary, I just remind myself of that. Here's what's interesting as I step into setting boundaries more, I'm also rubbing up against the martyrs that are like, oh, no worries, I just won't come now. Like my sister, my sister wanted to come out for the holidays. She comes out for the holidays every year. And I set a boundary of, you can't stay in my house. You can stay in mom and dad's house, but for what I need, you can't stay in my house. And so the next thing that I got was, well, we're not going to come then. I'm like, oh my God, we started to, I'm now letting her down.
No, she's trying to emotionally blackmail you to get what she wants. So that's not nice either. My feeling is she's a grown woman and that's okay. And you can honestly say, well, that's disappointing because we'll miss you, but I respect your right to choose what you want to do. And just leave it. Don't let it work. That is someone using their quote unquote preference. It's not a preference. She's punishing you. She's mad.